The city was alive in a way that felt almost overwhelming. Neon lights painted the sidewalks with pink and blue streaks, buses roared as they pulled away from stops, and vendors shouted out the last of their nightly sales. Yet somehow, despite the chaos, I only noticed her. She walked beside me, her coat brushing against mine with every step, her presence louder than the traffic, brighter than the billboards. There was a kind of magic to the way she moved, like she carried her own world within her, and I couldn't stop myself from being pulled into its orbit. We had just left the little cafe she had insisted we visit, a tucked-away corner shop filled with warm lamps, mismatched chairs, and the smell of cinnamon and roasted coffee beans. Inside, she had made me laugh until my chest ached, and I'd caught myself staring too long at the curve of her lips whenever she smiled. Every time our eyes met, there had been a question between us, unspoken, heavy, and thrilling. On the street, the night air was crisp, nipping at my skin, but her presence warmed me from the inside out. I wanted to take her hand so badly. My fingers twitched with the need, but fear sat heavy in me. What if she pulled away? What if someone saw? The city was not always kind, and I was not always brave. But then she slowed her steps. I felt her eyes on me, even before I turned to meet them. There was a daring softness in the way she looked at me, like she already knew what I was too afraid to say. And then, without a word, she stopped in the middle of the street. People moved around us, glancing, curious but hurried, yet she seemed entirely unaffected. "I can't wait anymore," she whispered, her voice so low I almost thought I'd imagined it. But then she leaned in and the world shifted. Her lips found mine. Soft, warm, deliberate. The kind of kiss that didn't ask for permission, it gave it. It told me everything she felt, everything I had been craving to hear but never dared to say. My breath caught as I melted into her, my heart racing so fast I thought it might burst. She tasted like coffee and cinnamon, like daring and freedom. The noise of the city faded into the background, replaced by the rush of blood in my ears and the sweet, slow rhythm of her mouth against mine. My hands found her waist without thinking, pulling her closer, kneading her nearer. She responded with a gentle press of her fingers against the back of my neck, deepening the kiss, grounding me even as my knees threatened to give way. Somewhere, a car horn blared. Someone laughed. I heard a voice mutter something I couldn't catch, but none of it mattered. For the first time, I didn't care who was watching. For the first time, I wanted to be seen. When she pulled back, my lips tingled, my chest rose and fell in uneven breaths. She was smiling, that mischievous, knowing smile that made my whole body ache with wanting. "Now," she said softly, brushing her thumb over my cheek, "everyone knows." I laughed, shaky and breathless, before leaning in to kiss her again. This time, it was me who didn't care about the world spinning around us. This time, it was me who claimed her, who let my fear go. And as our lips met once more, I realized something so simple, so beautiful, it left me dizzy. Love doesn't wait for the perfect moment. Sometimes love creates it. The kiss lingered on my lips even after we parted, like a secret only we shared, though the whole street had witnessed it. My chest felt warm, filled with something I couldn't quite name, but had always longed for. She slipped her hand into mine as if it were the most natural thing in the world, her fingers lacing with mine, steady and sure. For a moment, I forgot we were standing on a crowded sidewalk. All I knew was the press of her palm against mine, the safety in her touch. We began walking again, slower this time, like neither of us wanted the night to end. Streetlights glowed above us, throwing golden halos across the pavement, and I found myself stealing glances at her profile, at the curve of her nose, the softness of her jawline, the quiet confidence in her stride. Every detail of her felt like a discovery. "Do you realize what you just did?" I teased, my voice breaking the silence that had grown too heavy with all the emotions swirling inside me. She smirked, not even looking away from the road ahead. "Of course I do. I kissed you because I couldn't wait another second." Her blunt honesty sent shivers racing down my spine. I squeezed her hand tighter, almost needing the reassurance that she was real. In front of everyone, I whispered, almost to myself. "Good," she said, finally turning to look at me. Her eyes sparkled under the glow of the street lamps. "I don't want to hide how I feel about you. Not anymore." Something in me cracked open at that moment. All the walls I had built around my heart, all the doubts and fears, crumbled with her words. We stopped at a quieter corner where the traffic noise faded into the distance. She stepped closer, her free hand brushing a loose strand of hair behind my ear, her fingers lingering against my skin. The tenderness of the gesture made my heart ache. "You're beautiful," she whispered, her gaze locked on mine, vulnerable yet certain. Heat rushed to my cheeks, and I laughed nervously, trying to look away, but she gently lifted my chin back toward her. "Don't hide from me," she said softly. "Not when I see you so clearly." And then she kissed me again, slower this time, more deliberate, like she wanted to savor every second. I melted into her, the world falling away until there was nothing but the taste of her lips and the steady beat of her heart against mine. When we finally pulled apart, breathless and smiling, she rested her forehead against mine. "This," she whispered, her voice steady with conviction, "is only the beginning." And deep down, I knew she was right. The city stretched endlessly ahead of us, yet I felt like we had carved out our own little world within it. Hand in hand, we walked with no destination, letting the rhythm of our footsteps guide us. The night was cool, but I barely noticed the chill. Every time her thumb traced slow circles against my palm, warmth spread through me, a quiet reminder that I wasn't alone anymore. We passed by glowing shop windows, couples huddled together, and clusters of friends laughing too loudly, but none of it mattered. My attention was fixed on her, the way her hair caught the streetlight, the way her lips curved when she smiled at something small I said, the way she leaned ever so slightly toward me as though she couldn't stand even an inch of distance between us. "Tell me something," I said softly, breaking the gentle silence between us. She glanced at me, her eyes curious. "Anything." "Why no?" My voice wavered, though I tried to steady it. "Why kiss me tonight, in the middle of the street, when you could have waited?" Her laugh was low and warm, the kind that made my stomach twist in the best way. "Because I've been waiting long enough. Because every time I looked at you tonight, I thought about it, and I couldn't hold it in anymore. Life's too short to keep love a secret." Her words hit me harder than I expected. I blinked against the rush of emotion, my chest tight with gratitude and longing. She wasn't just brave for herself, she was brave for me too. We stopped under a row of fairy lights strung above a quiet alleyway, their soft glow wrapping us in a cocoon of gold. She stepped closer, and I felt my breath hitch. Her hand came up to cut my cheek, her touch gentle but insistent. I leaned into her palm, closing my eyes for just a second, letting myself feel safe, wanted, seen. "Do you know what I thought when I first met you?" she asked, her voice a whisper meant only for me. I shook my head, my throat too tight to speak. I thought, she has no idea how easy it would be for me to fall in love with her. And then I did. The words washed over me, both terrifying and exhilarating. My heart hammered in my chest as she tilted her head, her lips brushing mine again. This kiss was deeper, filled with everything unspoken, everything we had both been carrying in silence. My arms slid around her waist instinctively, pulling her closer until there was no space left between us. When we finally broke apart, I was breathless, my forehead resting against hers. "You're going to ruin me," I whispered, though the smile tugging at my lips betrayed the truth. I wanted to be ruined by her. She laughed softly, pressing a tender kiss to the corner of my mouth. "No," she murmured. "I'm going to love you. That's all." And under the golden lights, with the night stretching endlessly before us, I believed her. The night carried us further than we had planned. Neither of us mentioned going home. Neither of us checked the time. We simply kept walking, as if our steps were weaving a path only we could follow. The world outside felt irrelevant. The world between us was enough. Her hand in mine was an anchor, and each glance, each smile, each small squeeze of her fingers was a promise that I wasn't imagining any of it. We stopped at a bridge that stretched across the river, its dark surface shimmering under the glow of passing lights. The water rippled quietly, mirroring the stars and city lights above, and for a moment, the air felt charged like the universe itself was holding its breath with us. She leaned against the railing, her hair tumbling forward as the breeze caught it, strands glowing silver under the street lamps. I stood beside her, my chest tight, searching for words that didn't seem to exist. Instead, I watched her, and in watching, I understood something I had always been too afraid to admit. She had already become the center of my world. She noticed my gaze and smiled, tilting her head just slightly. "You're staring," she teased, her voice soft but playful. I flushed, caught between embarrassment and boldness. "Maybe I am," I admitted, surprising myself with the honesty. "I can't seem to stop." Her smile widened, and then she reached for me. With gentle insistence, she tugged me closer until my body brushed against hers. My breath caught as her hand slid up my arm, resting at my shoulder, her fingers tracing slow circles that made my skin tingle. "I like the way you look at me," she whispered, her lips so close to mine that every word was a caress. "Like you've been waiting for this as much as I have." I didn't answer with words. Instead, I kissed her again firm, lingering, pouring into her every ounce of feeling I had been holding back. Her lips parted softly, inviting me deeper, and I felt myself drown in her warmth, in the intoxicating mix of certainty and tenderness she carried in every touch. Her arms wrapped around me, pulling me flush against her. I could feel the steady beat of her heart, strong and quick, matching the rhythm of my own. The kiss deepened, grew hungrier, yet never lost its tenderness. It was passion wrapped in love, fire wrapped in safety. When we finally broke apart, I was dizzy, my forehead pressed against hers as I tried to catch my breath. She looked at me with eyes that felt like home, her voice steady even in a whisper. "Come with me," she said. It wasn't a demand, but an invitation, filled with softness and possibility. "Let's not end this night yet." I nodded, my answer clear without needing words. With her hand in mine, we turned from the river, ready to step into whatever awaited us next. We walked in silence after leaving the bridge, our fingers still intertwined, our bodies brushing with every step. The streets had grown quieter now, the shops closed, the late-night crowd thinning into the background. A hush settled over the city, as if it had granted us a little pocket of peace. Her hand squeezed mine once, and she glanced at me with that same playful glimmer in her eyes. "Do you trust me?" she asked suddenly, her voice soft but steady. The question caught me off guard, but my answer came without hesitation. "Yes." She smiled, satisfied, and led me down a side street I hadn't noticed before. It was narrower, lined with old brick buildings and ivy creeping up the walls, lanterns glowing faintly overhead. The air smelled faintly of rain, though the ground was dry, and something about the place felt hidden, as if it existed only for us. We stopped in front of a doorway. She reached into her pocket and pulled out a key. My chest tightened. This was her place. The thought sent a rush of nerves through me, but before I could second-guess myself, she turned to me. "You don't have to come in," she said softly, reading the worry in my eyes. "But I'd like it if you did." I hesitated for only a moment before nodding. The truth was, I didn't want the night to end either. She opened the door and pulled me inside, the warmth of her apartment wrapping around me instantly. It smelled like her, faintly floral with a hint of something earthy, grounding. The space was cozy, filled with shelves of books, small plants on the windowsill, and soft light spilling from a lamp in the corner. She slipped off her coat and hung it by the door before reaching for mine. Our fingers brushed again, and the spark of contact made my heart race all over again. "You can relax," she said, her smile gentle as she noticed my restless glances around the room. "You're safe here." Something in the way she said it, the certainty in her tone, made my shoulders drop. I breathed out slowly, realizing how tense I had been. She walked closer, closing the space between us until I could feel her warmth again. Her hand brushed my cheek, her thumb tracing the corner of my mouth. "I've wanted this for so long," she whispered. I didn't let her finish. I kissed her deeper than before, letting go of every fear, every doubt. Her arms circled me, pulling me into her body, and I felt her sigh against my lips, a sound that made me shiver. The city outside faded completely. Inside her apartment, there was only us, two hearts racing, two souls finally colliding. Her lips lingered on mine, soft and warm, before she pulled back just enough to look at me. Her eyes searched my face as if memorizing every detail, every expression. "You're even more beautiful up close," she murmured, and the sincerity in her tone made my throat tighten. We moved to the couch, sinking into its softness. She sat close, our knees touching, her hand resting lightly on mine. The air between us was electric, charged with the weight of everything unspoken. "Tell me what you're thinking," she said, tilting her head, her voice coaxing but gentle. I hesitated, then confessed that I don't want this to end. That I've never felt so wanted before. Her expression softened, and she leaned forward, kissing me again. This kiss was slower, more searching, as if she was answering every fear I had ever carried. My fingers threaded through her hair, tugging her closer, and she let out a quiet sound that sent heat rushing through me. Her hand slid up my arm, resting against my shoulder, her touch steady and grounding. "Then it won't end," she whispered when we broke apart, her forehead pressed to mine. "Not if you don't want it to." The simplicity of her words struck me deeply. For so long, I had thought of love as something fragile, conditional, temporary. But here she was, offering it freely, without hesitation. We stayed like that for what felt like hours, kissing, pulling back only to smile at each other, then kissing again. Each brush of her lips was different, sometimes playful, sometimes tender, sometimes filled with a hunger that left me breathless. The more I kissed her, the more I realized how impossible it would be to ever stop. Outside, the city was quiet. Inside, we had created a sanctuary, a place where only we existed. She cupped my face in her hands, kissing me deeply, then whispered against my lips, "Stay." And I knew in that moment I wasn't going anywhere. The first rays of dawn slipped quietly through the curtains, painting the room in pale gold. I hadn't slept at all, and neither had she. We had spent the night talking, sharing stories we had never told anyone else. Between conversations, there were long pauses filled with kisses, touches, and the kind of silence that felt like understanding. Her head rested on my shoulder, her breath warm against my neck. I traced lazy circles along the back of her hand, marveling at how natural this all felt. The city outside was waking up, but for us, time seemed suspended. "You know," she whispered, her voice husky from the night, "I didn't plan on kissing you in the street. It just happened. You looked at me and I couldn't stop myself." I smiled, remembering the rush of that moment, the way everything had blurred except for her lips on mine. "I'm glad you didn't stop yourself," I murmured. She tilted her head, brushing her lips against my jawline, and I shivered at the softness of her touch. "Me too," she said, before kissing me again. This kiss was unhurried, tender, yet it carried a depth that made my chest ache. It wasn't about lust or urgency. It was about connection, about telling me without words that she wanted more than just a night. She wanted something lasting. We shifted on the couch until I was lying back against the cushions and she leaned over me, her hair falling like a curtain around us. Her hands framed my face and her lips found mine again and again, each kiss deepening until I felt myself melting under her. When she finally pulled away, her forehead pressed against mine, she whispered, "I want this to be real. I want us to be real." My heart hammered in my chest, but I nodded, my voice steady when I replied, "So do I." It felt like a vow, one sealed not with ceremony, but with trust and closeness. Outside, the day had begun, but inside, we were writing the first lines of a story neither of us had expected to begin. The following days passed like a dream. We spent every free moment together, walking through the city, sharing meals, discovering hidden corners we hadn't noticed before. But no matter where we went, it was always the same. The kiss lingered between us, the kiss that had started everything. Every time she reached for my hand, I felt a spark of warmth spread through me. Every time she leaned in and brushed her lips against mine, even in public, my heart skipped. It wasn't just romance, it was freedom, the kind that came from being seen, wanted, and accepted completely. One evening, we returned to her apartment after a long day. The moment the door closed behind us, she pulled me into her arms, kissing me deeply, as if she had been holding back all day. I melted into her embrace, my arms wrapping around her waist, pressing us closer together. Her kisses grew hungrier, more desperate, and I responded in kind, matching her intensity. The couch, the walls, the small space around us disappeared. It was just her lips, her hands, her heartbeat against mine. When we finally paused, breathless, she whispered against my lips, "I don't want to pretend anymore. I want the world to know." I looked at her, my chest tightening with a mix of fear and exhilaration. "Are you sure?" I asked softly. She nodded, her eyes fierce and certain. "Yes, you're not just a secret to me. You're everything." The conviction in her words dissolved my fears. I kissed her again, sealing her promise with mine. That night, we didn't just kiss. We held each other as though the future was already ours. And for the first time in my life, I believed it was. Weeks turned into months, and the story that began with a single kiss on the street blossomed into something beautiful and undeniable. We no longer hid our affection. She kissed me in cafes, held my hand at markets, and looked at me with love so clear it turned heads. At first, I was nervous, afraid of the judgment that might follow. But each time I looked into her eyes, every fear faded. The world could stare, whisper, or judge, but none of it mattered. All that mattered was her. One evening, as the sun set over the city, painting the sky in shades of pink and orange, we returned to the bridge where it all began. The same spot where she had kissed me for the first time. She stopped, turning to me with a smile. "Do you remember?" "How could I forget?" I replied, my heart swelling. Without hesitation, she leaned in and kissed me again, right there in the open, as people walked by. But this time, it wasn't a daring act of impulse. It was a celebration, a declaration. When she pulled back, she held my face in her hands and whispered, "That kiss changed everything. And I never want to stop kissing you." Tears welled in my eyes, not from sadness, but from the overwhelming truth of it all. "Then don't," I whispered back, before pressing my lips to hers again. The world kept moving around us, but we stood still, wrapped in each other. The kiss that began as a spark had grown into a fire that would never fade. It wasn't just the beginning of love. It was the beginning of forever.